Bonjour and welcome to Rauta. This time we go to France with a rather new name, Wurmian. Wurmian. This is a one-man band featuring a session musician, which effectively makes the lineup two people for this given debut album. Mind you, this is a very new act, so there is not much history with the given band thus far, meaning there are really no releases to compare to, at least in the terms of this band's own history. So we'll just start with this and let's try to figure out what this is made of. First of all, it comes with a very atmospheric, in my opinion, beautiful cover, and then rather, how to say, black metallic logo. But this ain't no black metal. This is more like melodic death metal with lots of melancholia. On Metal Archive side, I was paying attention that this is labeled as melodic doom death. To be honest, I don't know how these people define doom death. When I'm thinking doom death or death doom, doesn't matter. I'm thinking slow tempos and all that stuff. I mean, basically, doom is always more or less slow. So when I'm having this kind of album labeled as melodic death doom, I'm thinking like, check out the pills you are having. First of all, there are no slow tempo moments on this album, like at all. And secondly, there are actually some few fast tempo ones, not like black metal blasting or anything like that, but definitely up tempo stuff. So calling it melodic death doom is, in my opinion, just wrong. When it comes to melodic death metal, however, I get it. This is actually reminding me at some points even older style of In Flames and all. So the kind of stuff where you have a really bit of growlier vocals, and that is then again combined with the rather melodic output. So you're not really thinking of bands like Cannibal Corpse or Obituary, D-Side, whatever, when you're listening to this. But the old melodic death metal is very much present here. But this album doesn't really sound like 90s, so I get it, it's maybe not the most obvious choice. The only thing how I can reason with this claim of melodic death doom is that you could think if bands such as early, I don't know, My Dying Pride or Paradise Lost and Anathema like that went for a little bit of up-tempo. So having the doomier parts kind of removed in a way, but still keeping that melancholia right there and obviously adding melodic stuff, and that would be, or even early Catatonia. But like I said, when you remove the slowness from doom metal, I mean, it's just plain wrong to call it doom. But it is what it is, and obviously it makes no sense to debate over that. Immemorial Shrine is the only release from this band, and 2025 is the release here. And here it says only one member, but like I said, there is the session member mentioned in the booklet, so there is that. And here it is mentioned that other stuff includes some other band people here, but it's not saying anything about, the session drumming and whatever. So here it just says Antoine is doing everything. So not everything here is once again totally correct on Metal Archive site, but what it is worth is that obviously you have these 7 tracks. 39 minutes. I think this checks with the information I have here about the album. So here it is. And once again, the beautiful cover, in my opinion anyway. So what can we say about this album beyond the obvious? It's melodic death metal. Well, first of all, the vocals are not your typical melodic death metal stuff if you compare it to the 90s. I mean, back in the days, it was quite vague whether we're talking about melodic death metal or just melodic black metal. I mean, think about back in the days, even bands like Dissection would call it melodic death metal. That goes with the bands like In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, and so forth, meaning they were quite screamy or raspy at point rather than full growly vocals, as, opposed to bands like, Hypocrisy. There you had the growl vocals. The melodic death metal was very much exactly what it was. Death metal with melodic. And this is something that, puts this a little bit different page, because the vocals are somewhere between grunting and growling. I mean, we're talking about death metal growling here. So it's almost like some points are more like shouting, but it's not really that. Roughly, think about the kind of vocal, styles of, bands from like Pantera and stuff like that, where it's just more of this kind of grunting, not, death metal growling, but not exactly clean vocals either, and you have the rough idea what is going on. And while this is mostly mid-tempo, all in all, there are parts where it just kind of speeds up a little bit. It doesn't really make this, death thrash or anything like that, but there is a little bit of that going on, like, hey, we need to push the gas pedal a little bit further down, and then we go it. Now, while the melodies are in fact quite okay here, nothing really kind of sticks. Then you have this production, which is, to be honest, quite basic, quite mediocre, if you will. Nothing bad about it, but could use a little bit more punch to the whole game here. And when I'm listening to this, I cannot help but feel a little bit disappointed, I guess. Not exactly bored, but to me it seems like skipping the demo phase results this album sound quite demo-ish. I mean, the bar is always going higher the further and further we have metal history along the lines, because what matters is that, what happens really is, not matters, but happens is that people get better with, production. And that doesn't mean that every album is supposed to sound like super produced, overproduced with, all that stuff. But, there are like 2 ways, roughly, which you can go. Maybe 3 ways, if you really think about it. You can be raw, especially when I would do some underground black metal and all. But that takes skill to sound raw and powerful at the same time. A lot of bands make mistakes. And obviously, this kind of production wouldn't fit this album at all. Then you have the rather organic take, especially if you want to sound really retro. The kind of a 70s ways. Maybe not fitting for this band either. And then you have the rather punchy style, which is not, like I said, the overproduced style, but definitely something that makes your drums sound fantastic, bombastic. And obviously the guitar is, powerful and all, but leaving you with an impact. Which is true with a lot of bigger bands when they have the budget and understanding how to sound they're powerful. While this album doesn't sound anything like that. It's not powerful, it's not raw, it's not really organic, so it's in the middle of the road, leaving it a little bit like uninteresting. I'm not saying it's bad, but like I said, that's one of the weaker points here. But even the main fault is still, unfortunately, the songwriting. While it has basically all the ingredients you need to have for this kind of genre, after all, when you're doing melodic music, you're supposed to be very, very catchy, or at least memorable. The kind of stuff like, oh, these are so melancholic. Now this is like halfway through. I'm kind of sad, but not that sad. I'm not crying about the bitch or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel it today. So it's like this gray weather what we have outside. It's not really cold and depressive or anything like that. But it's not really something like, hey, I want to grab a 6-pack and go out with my friends to barbecue and drink beer. So that's part of the problem with this album. It's really not going anywhere. It has the foundation laid out, and then you put it all in the album. Nobody's stopping you like, hey, that idea is a little bit mediocre. This could be a lot better and all that stuff. And that is the very basic problem with a lot of self-financed bands and one-man projects, solo projects and all that stuff. Nobody's telling you like, hey, I'm going to challenge you on this riff or this idea. So instead you're just like, whatever you feel good, happy about it, you just put it out and hope that people like it. So like I said, this is in my opinion a work in progress. Decent and easy to listen, but I don't get the feel I need to listen to this more. I know I sound utterly negative, but I'm gonna point it out. This is more on the positive side, nonetheless, despite my bitchings, rather than on the bad side of things. But the result is quite demo-ish still overall, especially when the bars are rising. But melodic death metal fans should check it out, and the rest, maybe wait for the next turn, the next album and all that stuff. Off you go, give it a listen, links provided in the description box. Thanks.